Hello, all. Welcome to our curiosity chat on networking for embracing curiosity. And I am Shirin Köprücü. I'm the curiosity coach. And with me here today is Paula Douglas Seidel, who is a global leader, facilitator, and consultant with a career dedicated to helping individuals and organizations forge authentic relationships by building strategic partnerships and alliances that drive loyalty and mutual growth. And that's truly how I have experienced Paula. I'm so happy to get a chance to talk about this topic with you, Paula.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm really excited to collaborate with you and talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is networking. I feel like I've been doing that for my professional career and throughout. So I'm excited to talk more to you about it and your guests.
Yeah, you're glowing as you say this, so I can't wait. For me, when curiosity is asked to make progress on hardest things, it's really definitely very important to go about it with full imagination and also knowing what is important. In that, I have found, however, what is really helpful is different perspectives. Because is what we are seeing truly that, what is the reality, or can one see something from different perspectives? When we say networking, this is what shows up for me. I'm curious what networking is for you and how is it important?
I think that the first thing is that I think networking is all about curiosity. So I love that I'm here talking to the curiosity coach about networking, because the major tenet of it is being curious and being open and seeing where things lead. And so I think that it's just such a natural fit for you and me to talk about this. Networking is, we're hearing right now in our day and age that if you are in a job search or you're expanding your career in any way, even if you're staying at your job, but you're just, doing professional development and advancing, networking is almost the top thing you should be doing, right? And meeting people, and part of meeting people is just opening yourself up to whatever possibilities are there. So we never really know when we meet someone, if there's going to be an immediate thing that they can help us with or not. But I think being open and being curious, learning to listen, those are all things that are important in networking. And so I think it's just so appropriate that you and I are here to talk about that and talk about it together, because they do go hand in hand. And that curiosity piece when you're talking to someone and really being like, genuinely interested in what they're doing, not just like, oh, maybe they can help me later. It's more like, what, tell me about yourself, tell me about your journey, and learning something new from someone.
Yeah, yeah. And as I listened to you, what I kept hearing is opening yourself up to possibilities, information. And as you said, networking is something everybody engaged is with
Mhm.
because they realize the need. Anywhere from job search to networking to get to know others for other reasons, right? In the field of entrepreneurship or in conferences.
Mhm.
And you very much emphasize the importance of curiosity, um, and opening up, like approaching this with an open mindset.
Mhm.
What value do you find does one honor there when you show up to networking
Mhm.
that way?
I think it's all about authenticity. I think that's something that's really important to me. That's one of my values, is authenticity. Being yourself and finding a way to be yourself in your professional world, without feeling like you have to act like something or be something. Just being authentic. And part of that for me is a piece of networking, right? So like, authentically tell me about yourself.
Mhm.
Authentically, like, why did you go that path? Authentically tell me more about that project you worked on. You're curious, you want to know, you want to learn more. And I think we can all learn from each other. So I do think value of authenticity, like really opening yourself up to that, like you're being authentic and you're also really interested in the other person. So that's the value that comes up for me when we're talking.
Wow. And so, and that is when we are all mindful, it's such a value for many of us
Hmm.
to be able to show up as we are and to hope that others show up as they are, right?
Right, right. I think it was funny. I had and I don't know why this popped in my head, but I had a conference I went to just 2 weeks ago, and I had kind of a rough day the day before. And I was out networking, and there were people at the conference, and I just, hey, nice to meet you. We're talking. I met a lot of great people, and it was all at my old college, so it's like, a lot of alumni. And a woman came up to me and we were talking, and she's like, "Oh, they're doing free headshots. I'm gonna go get my headshot done." And I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Are you gonna do it?" And I said, "You know what? I had a bad day yesterday, and I feel like it's gonna show up in the camera. Like I feel like it's gonna be something underneath me that's gonna show up." And it was so sweet because she was like, I would never know that. And so it was like, I felt like, oh, like that was just like such an authentic conversation, right? I didn't even know this person. I'm like, oh, I had a really bad day yesterday. I did
Yeah.
not want a camera this close to me. But I think that's another great piece of that, right? Like I felt like, you know what, yesterday was really rough. The camera's gonna pick on that somehow. And it was just really nice for her to be like, no, I don't see that, And so I think again, being open, being curious, and being authentic with yourself. Like I don't feel like really having a camera right here today. And saying that to someone I didn't know. I mean, it put me in a vulnerable position because I didn't know this woman, but it also was really a nice moment, and I appreciated that she's like, I can't see that. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. And she went and got her headshots and they look great. So
Sounds like a perfect example of our former conversation about how the value of networking can be completely surprising in
Mhm.
unexpected ways.
I think that's what's so exciting about it. And I think if, it's day-to-day stressors aside, you're looking for a job,
Mhm.
you're looking for a career change, you're looking for something, and you're out there networking for that, you're never going to find it in that moment. It's the magic and the uncertainty that is actually really cool, right? So trying to go into it with an excitement of like, I don't know where this is going to lead. I'm going to meet somebody and I have no idea like what's going to happen. And I think that's really the way you need to sort of open yourself up to networking, because the person you meet in this moment may or may not be able to help you. You may be able to help them. Like, you don't really know who's going to help who, or they may introduce you to someone else who introduces you to someone else who refers you for something that, a client, a job, a referral of some sort. And so I think that's one of those pieces where it's just like you really can't have too many expectations. You just have to kind of go in and go with the flow, but knowing that you're opening up your network, that you're opening up yourself, and that you are sort of open to see what happens. And I think we don't have enough of that in life because we try to plan. We're planning that, you go to
Mhm.
school, you get a job, you plan your career, you plan your, it's like everything is planned, but then there's this other side of life that's you can't really control all of it. So, that's where I think there's like a little bit of excitement and a little bit of magic in networking, and you just really don't know where it's going to end up.
Yeah, yeah. And when you have the plan in mind, it's hard to be curious.
Yes. Because you're worrying, right? You're like, oh, I have to get a job, I have to get a thing, I have to get a client. And when you're worried about that stuff, it's like you're not being curious, you're just trying to get it done, check something off the list, right? And so yeah, really just really kind of being open and just not knowing. There's some unknown in that. And I think there's a lot of unknown in life that we don't really account for. I'm thinking about how I met my husband. Like I didn't think I was going to meet him when I met him. I was single for years. So I was networking in a different way those days. But I was, out like looking, looking, looking. And when I decided, I was like, "Ah, I'm just tired of looking," that's when I met him.
And that resonates with so many people, probably. Like, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I was like, no, I don't want to meet your friend. Now we're married. So I think
So fun.
that's cool. I think you and I had talked about this story, but I had essentially had been networking my entire life, right? And I didn't really realize how much networking I had been doing for a job or for a boss or for a company or an organization until I was sort of on my own. And, it was like, oh, now I need to sort of reclaim my network for myself. But my networking fail story was that I had been released in a like reduction in force, and that was a pretty vulnerable feeling for someone who felt like, really hard worker, like everyone. We're hard workers. We like,
Mhm.
we're all trying to do our best. And that leaves you in a really, really sad place. You feel like, oh, wow, I didn't really fit the bill or whatever. And so I found an event to go to, and I had gone in and I was looking for my name tag. And as I was looking for my name tag, I saw the name tag of a former direct report. And I panicked because I'd only been like gone from that job for like maybe not even a month, right? And so I thought, oh my gosh, I can't let him
What
see
kind of
me.
stories came
Right.
to
I
your
don't want them
mind?
to see me in this like vulnerable position. Like, oh my God, I can't network in front of them. So I grabbed my tag and I talked to the organizers. I was like, I'm not sure if I can stay for the whole event. They're like, that's fine. And I like ran out the building and I ran around the corner and I was in an alley. I called my husband panicking, and I was like, I can't go in there. I can't let them see me like this. And my husband was like, that person's such a nice person. Like they're not gonna care. And I was like, I just can't let them see me like out there trying, right? Like I felt like I had to be out there trying. They were gonna watch me network, and I was gonna fail at that. And so my husband had like some really great advice. I mean, first his advice was like, you can do this. You've been doing this your whole life. Go in there. And I was like, I
Mhm.
can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm like literally like in the alley. And so he was like, I tell you what, if you truly don't feel like you can do it today, go treat yourself to a nice lunch. Go do something nice for yourself because you're trying. And then, but you got to get back in there. Like you got to find a way to get back into that world. And I'm like, okay. So I went and had a nice lunch and I calmed down. And 2 weeks later, there was another event. And Sharon, you were at that event too. And I was like, okay, I'm going in. I'm doing it. And it was wonderful because it was a 2-day event, but I think there were only like 40 people there. It was really small in a
I
nice way,
remember.
right? And so I got to meet everybody in the room, and somebody actually gave me a job referral that day. Somebody, referred me to someone in her organization, and it didn't really work out, but it was like she didn't know me that well. She knew me good enough, but not that well. And another person was like, oh, we're looking for a consultant for this thing. That might be something you're interested in. People are still reaching out to me at that event.
So many. So what really becomes very, very clear in our conversation is how much magic and glitter and connection you find in networking. And I feel like when we open what you're saying is when we open ourselves up to meeting others like that, that's
Right.
what can go really well. The
Yes.
other thing I've heard is the importance of being with vulnerability.
Hmm.
And I'm curious how would you what you would like to leave listeners with regards to that, because
Hmm.
what we are seeing, the world is embracing change, and with change, most certainly, um, these moments of vulnerability, also through networking, come in. And how can we embrace curiosity then?
I think the first step is to give yourself some grace. I
Mm-hmm.
think give yourself some grace. There's one thing I learned with the sort of being vulnerable is that so many of us have been in that position, right? You're not the only one that's ever felt vulnerable. And people act like they're immune to it, but we've all kind of been there. So I think give yourself some grace. I think my husband's both of his pieces of advice that day were really valid. The first one was like, you can do this. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing, you didn't do anything wrong. You can go in there and do this.
And I
And then
can't help but notice you were networking with your husband
I
in that moment. You engaged someone
was like,
else.
I need to talk to somebody. I need to like, I couldn't just run away without calling somebody.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
and I love that he was kind of like, you can do this. But if you feel like you can't, I understand. And you should
Mm-hmm.
go do something really nice for yourself. And I think that was probably the best, like give yourself some grace. It's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
maybe because there's emotions tied to it. Like I was still in a very emotional place when
Mm-hmm.
I was, doing that sort of early networking and realizing that I had been networking my whole life for all these other people, but not for myself, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of hurt. It was like, oh my God, and I had a really great conversation with another friend after that was like, yeah, it's time for you to reclaim your network. That's your network. You built that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just transfer that to somebody. You built that. And so I just think giving yourself some grace, letting yourself be vulnerable, and like any kind of mindfulness where you just kind of let yourself feel the emotion a little bit. And if you
Mm-hmm.
if you can or you can't, just let yourself feel it, but then definitely get back in there and do it. Because I do think once you embrace the thing you're afraid of, it usually becomes
Right.
really fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paula, for this wonderful, for sharing all your experiences on networking, such valuable experiences. Ready to engage with conversations with our attendees?
Absolutely, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.